direct you to August of 2017. In August of 2017, did you know of Rebecca or Brianna or Corey Mitchell?
I didn't at that time.
Okay. So when was the first time that you knew of them?
I received a call in late 2017, early 2018. I forget exactly what month it was. And it was from a lady that identified herself as Rebecca Micciola.
And after you received that phone call, do not tell me what she told you, but after you received that phone call, did you have conversations with your son?
I did.
Okay. And what did you discuss with your son?
We discussed the nature of the phone call, and that was that they believed Christopher was the father of a young boy.
Okay. And after you spoke to your son, what was the next time that anything dealing with Corey Micciola was done?
So Christopher was away, and he was coming back that weekend. My daughter at the time was still living with us. And so when she came home from work, I had a discussion with her about the nature of the phone call. She knew the name, but didn't know anything about Chris being a potential father of a young boy. Within a day or two, Kimberly produced a document that she was on social media and brought it down. I believe it was from Topics, which I'm not familiar with. But the gist of that was a conversation between people that strongly suggested that Christopher wasn't the father.
Okay. Now, you said that Christopher was coming home for the weekend. In August of 2017, where was Christopher living?
Christopher was living in Baltimore.
What was he doing? If you know, what was he doing?
Christopher was in the Johns Hopkins program for his master's degree in education with the urban teachers. So he was attending school, and at the same time he was being mentored in the classroom to teach.
Now, did there come a time that you heard from this person who identified as solid?
Objection, Judge, hearsay.
Did there come a time?
That you heard it from the person, like...
What?
Did you receive a phone call?
Yeah, I don't think he was going to answer the content of the
Okay.
conversation.
I
Right?
wasn't.
Okay.
Did you receive a phone call from a person, again, who identified themselves as Rebecca Micciola?
I did.
Okay. And how long in time was it between the first phone call you received from this person to the second time you received the call?
The second call was weeks later, because then subsequently there was a third call. But the second call was a few weeks later.
Okay. Now, after you received the second phone call from this person who identified herself as Rebecca Micciola, did you have another conversation with your son?
I did at some point. The second conversation was very short with Rebecca.
Did there come a time when now Corey Micciola became part of the Gregor family?
There did.
Okay. And do you recall when that was?
Corey's first visit was in the beginning of August of 2019. It was just a visit for a couple hours. I remember it because Christopher went to pick him up. And it was a big day for us. It was my only grandson. He came for a couple-hour visit, and the preparation of everything at the house was about Corey. I remember going through I had 4 children, they all played sports, so I was going through all the old equipment now that the children were older and pulling out all kinds of balls and baseballs and footballs. And
So, you met him at that time.
no, I don't.
You testified that he was your only grandchild at that time.
Yes,
So, at that time, your children were all older.
they were.
So now, did there come a time when, besides a visit, that Corey became, it became more than just visitation? By the way, where did you live at this time?
We lived in Monroe.
And that's here in New Jersey?
It is,
Okay.
Middlesex County.
Okay. So did there come a time where it became more than just he came over for a visit?
August 28th was the next visit that I remember, and I believe that was ordered through the court. At that time, it was close to him beginning overnight visits. So we actually had set up a bedroom for him and did everything we could to prepare for him to arrive. But there was so much more than just the tangible things to get ready, because there became some serious discussion in terms of what we needed to do to prepare for him based on the dialogue that I had with his grandmother.
Now, when you say, without telling us what that dialogue was, what are some of the things that you did to prepare for Corey now moving in or having more contact with him, overnight visits? What were some of the things that you needed to do?
Well, school hadn't started yet, so it was everything in terms of making his life comfortable. It was what size clothes did he wear, what food did he like, what were his hobbies, setting his room up so he was comfortable, because he really didn't know us very well. So it was everything to make him comfortable to live with us, all his likes, and it was during his visits trying to get that information from him without sitting down and browbeating him in terms of everything he liked, everything he didn't like. It was just spending the time with him and getting a feel for what we could do best for him when he arrived.
Okay. So now this is just overnight visitation at this point.
In the end of August,
Right.
yes.
So did there come a time from August 28th of 2019 that overnight visit became greater than just overnight visit?
It did.
And when was that?
I believe it was October.
Okay, and what happened in October that changed?
In October, Christopher had filed for custody, the way I remember it, and he became the custodial parent. And so with that, Corey began to live with us. And I say live with us, it was for a certain time period. It was Mondays through Thursdays, then he would go back to his grandmother's house on Fridays after school, and then come back to us off the school bus on Monday. There's times where that was changed based on holidays, based on vacation, so it seemed, I'm going to say changed often. It wasn't steadfast. It did change, but in our minds, he was living with us, and he would visit with his grandmother.
Okay. So when he was living with you, were you working?
I was. I'm self-employed. I set my own schedule, and part of our plan to accept Corey into our home was that I could do such where I could make my schedule, because Chris was teaching at the time. So
When you say Chris, you're talking about your son.
Christopher was teaching at the time in Camden, and we knew that in order to take him, besides the challenges we had in front of us, to make him most comfortable and to assist in his learning, I thought it best if I could be there almost during all his waking hours. It didn't always happen that way, but for the most part, it involved getting up very early with him. My wife was reporting to the office at the time with her job, and my wife would make him breakfast. If Christopher was still home, which was a rarity during the first 3 months because he was leaving at 6 a.m. So Corey went up, he either took a shower the night before or he took a shower that morning, and it was me that monitored him and helped him get dressed. And when he came down for breakfast, it was a total commitment. He'd come down for breakfast, I'd go through his book bag, and we'd make sure all his assignments were there, his lunch was ready, anything for school that he needed. And as soon as he got off the school bus, which dropped him off right in front of our house at about 3 o'clock, I was there to meet him off the school bus.
So you went from grandpa to almost father.
We often jokingly said that, we just had our 5th child. And it wasn't for a lack of commitment from Chris, but it was our game plan as a family to do the best that we could for him.
Okay. Now, when you first were introduced to Corey, did he live somewhere other than Monroe?
He did.
Do you know where he lived?
He lived in Jamesburg.
Okay. Do you know if he went to school there?
He did.
Okay. Now, when Chris became the custodial parent, did you change the school system?
Changed the school within the first few months, yes.
Okay. And where did he now go to school?
He went to Monroe schools and he went to Barclay Brook School.
Okay. So, had your children went through that school system?
They all did.
Okay. And were you familiar with the school system?
Very.
Okay. And what did you do as a grandparent or father with respect to that, his education?
Well, part of the...
Briefly.
I was totally involved in his education. Monroe has a system by which you can go online, and much to my other children's chagrin during their careers in the school, I was on there every day. And I was on there checking for assignments, checking for grades, checking for, in general, how he was doing. He had some classes that were more of a challenge in blocks of instruction than others. The teacher, in fact, would make notes and put it in his book bag every night about how he did that particular day. And I know that's one of the first things I did when I got him off the school bus. I brought him in and let him unwind. And I'd open that up because it was, did Corey have a good day or did Corey have a bad day? And it seemed in Monroe that most of them were good days. There was an occasional bad day. And a bad day usually was defined by focus issues, being disruptive, things like that had manifested itself in a larger degree when he was still in Jamesburg from all the things that I had read. So I was totally involved with his education, from not just perusing online in terms of how he was doing in school, but going through his book bag, doing lessons with him. I tried to do as much as I could before Christopher came home, because he was doing the same thing after dinner with him.